Okay. So, good evening to all of you. Our next speaker is Dr. Ashokendu Samanta sir, who is Vice President and Divisional Head of Research and Development Division, Indian Register of Shipping, Mumbai. Dr. Ashokendu Samanta sir obtained his bachelor degree in civil engineering with first class in year 1991 from Bengal Engineering College, University of Calcutta. He took his postgraduate degree with the first class from the same university with a specialization in structural engineering in 1993. Subsequently, he obtained his doctorate degree from the Department of Ocean Engineering and Naval Architecture from Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur in 1999. He worked as a postdoctoral research fellow at the Robert Gordon University, UK during 2003 to 2004. He also completed post-graduation in business management from XLRI Jamshedpur in 2011. He is a chartered engineer and member of several distinguished scientists. Dr. Samanta sir worked as a visiting faculty in Ocean Education and Research Center, Mumbai, and has been working as a reviewer in international journals and workshops, judge in the conferences, supervisor for doctoral thesis work, trainer in training programs, project manager in international projects, and keynote speaker and member in various technical committees. Dr. Samanta sir has vast experience in working in the field of ship and offshore structure and has several publications in the reputed international journal to his credit. He is listed in the America's Who is Who in the world for his outstanding achievement in this field. Dr. Samanta sir has been working in the Indian Register of Shipping Mumbai for more than 2 decades and is presently holding the post of Vice President and Divisional Head of Research and Development Division in this organization. Also, Ashokendu Samanta sir is with us and mentoring the underwater maintenance repairing group, and particularly for developing the training school at IIT Guwahati. So with this, I welcome you once again, sir, to deliver a talk on activities and interest of Indian Register of Shipping and interaction with the members of the TIH IIT Guwahati. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sajan. Is my screen visible?
Yes, your screen is visible, sir.
Yeah. So good afternoon.
Excuse me, sir. Menon, sir, your hand is raised. Any specific point you want to make? Okay, it may be by mistake, sir. Please, sir. I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir.
Hi, sir. So good afternoon, Professor Dwivedi, Professor Sajan, Professor Murli Mohan, other professors of IIT Guwahati, students, and other dignitaries. It is my privilege to be in this meeting and present my understanding on the underwater opportunities and technologies and challenges, and also present my views. This entire presentations actually I have divided mainly two parts. First of all, I have been working in this organizations called Indian Register of Shipping. As long as we are discussing anything which is floating on water, Indian Register of Shipping is there. So when we are discussing on the underwater technologies, so I think it is relevant. First of all, I will be giving some understanding about the Indian Register of Shipping, what it does, what is their role in the certifications, particularly vessels related and other floating structures which is floating on the sea and the other water bodies. And then, of course, our main aim, what is that related to these opportunities and challenges in the underwater technologies. That is the second part. I believe you will be not, missing that part, because that part is more challenging, and I'll be giving certain views from my end for that challenges and opportunities into the second part. So let me begin with the understanding of Indian Register of Shipping. Indian Register of Shipping actually it is established in 1975 as a public limited company to provide services to maritime and allied industrial service globally. It is a non-profit organization having no shareholders and is financially and functionally independent. IRS, we say in short, it is Indian Register of Shipping, but many people, or I mean to say globally, it is known as IRS. So IRS does not receive financial grant from any source and generates its own revenue for its operations and research. So it is a classification society. So what do you mean by classification society? The classification society actually, it is a body under IX, International Association of Classification Society, whose head office is in London, and there are many classification societies, particularly 14 classification societies are the full member under IX, and IRS or Indian Register of Shipping is one of them. Now, there are other classification societies you might have heard, that American Bureau of Shipping, ABS, from America, or Bureau Veritas from France, DNV from Norway, Lloyd Registers or LR from UK. So these are the certain classification societies. Total 14 classification societies are there, and IRS is one of them. We are the associate member of IX from 1991, and we got the full memberships in 2010. We also have that EU recognition in 2016, then US Coast Guard recognition 2020, and ranked top 10 by Lloyd List. What is our vision? Vision is that to be the first choice of all existing and potential customers globally. This is our head office, which is in Powai, Mumbai. Of course, we have many other, I mean to say, branches. We do say call service stations all over India and all over world. So this is the missions of us: the safer, smarter, and greener. Safer by promoting and driving a safety culture to prevent loss or harm to personal, property, and environment. Smarter by using competent personnel to deliver our service and continually improving the reliability of our system and process through appropriate research and development. And the greener by sharing knowledge and taking measures to reduce environmental footprints to achieve sustainable development. You know, nowadays there are certain terminology which is coming again and again, like this environmental footprints. IMO, it is organization, International Maritime Organizations. They are actually regulating this type of carbon footprints all over the world, and particularly in marine related activities. So it is our duty as a classification society to suggest what are the means or ways, or what are the different format by which we can attain this carbon footprint, so that greenhouse emission will be lesser, and that IMO, whatever they have certain missions in 2030 or 2050, will achieve that goal. We have a strong technical core group, 800 plus qualified engineers, average experience is 17 years, and R&D is our focus. And our 4 decades, we have the industry experience and established in presence in major industry segments like marine certification and offshore certifications. So I am just showing these things to let you know that we have been working in this water for the last 40 years. So whatever related certificate, if anybody wanted to work in water, particularly related to the vessel which is floating, actually the certificates needs to be obtained. There are many types of certificates as required for operation purpose, and this type of certificates are being given by Indian Register of Shipping. So it is not only related to the marine certifications, but also related to the offshore certifications. And of course, we are into the education and training. So when we are talking about these deep water opportunities and challenges, we might be working something related to product development or something else which will be deployed into the water. The moment we will be deploying into the water, there are many rules and regulations we need to follow, particularly this DG shippings are there, then there are many other codes are there which we need to follow, and accordingly we have to obtain the certificate from the government. We are the organizations or we are the classification societies which help them to get that certificate, of course, maintaining all these rules and regulations. We have a strong technical core group, which the ship classification is our main aim, because we have been dealing with the ships for the last 40 years, and all the ships which are flying all over the world, they need to get the certificate from the classification societies. So Indian Register of Shippings provide that type of certificate to the ship owners to get that thing ship worthy. So because ship has to get the certificate, whether it is not a one-time certificate, there are many type of certificate. It will be annual monitoring, and something is there so that ship needs to be shipworthiness, or something else related to the mooring, or something else related to the offshore structures. So all these things need certifications which we provide. Of course, we have a backbone is the research and innovations, which we do that different kinds of analysis and new innovation, and based on that thing our ship classifications are there. And we also develop rules for this classification related to the ship structures and other floating bodies, like your offshore structures, mooring analysis, and other MODU and MOPU, mobile offshore drilling units, all these things. And not only that thing, we also have the rules for these combatant vessels and non-combat vessels of the Indian Navy and Coast Guard. So all these rules actually being developed here, and ultimately at the end of the day, these rules is being applied, and whether a vessel is to be floating onto the water or not, that certificates need to be obtained. We have a fleet profile. We have many types of vessels like oil tanker, bulk carrier, container ships, gas carrier, and others type of vessels. And this is our global coverage. We have more than 50 offices are there all over the world. Out of them, 26 are inside India, and outside India another 26. So we have a footprint in America, we have a footprint in Africa, in Southeast Asia, and other European countries. This is the participation in the international forum, IX and industry bodies. You know, being a classification societies, we have to keep our knowledge at par with what are the things happening all over the world. There are many type of international forums are there. So we have we being the classification societies, we need to attend all these forums and discuss what are the things are happening, and accordingly sometimes we might have to give certain suggestions to our government bodies, and based on that things rules will be implemented or some other rules will be changed. So these are the things which we have been doing for quite some time. We are chairing the Association of Asian Classification Societies in 2017. And we also chaired the highest body, that is International Association of Classification Societies, from 2019 July to 2020. So it is actually basically a 1-year term being given to more or less one by one classification societies. So IRS also got that opportunity, and we are the chair of this International Classification Societies. So these are the recognition and certifications we have been received from IX, from International Underwater Underwriting Associations, then European Union, and EMS and other bodies. We have a RO recognitions. If some vessels is floating in any water, you have to be if you wanted to work, you have to be recognized by that concerned flag. These flags are Liberia, Panama, US, Marshall Island, Bahamas, and Denmark. So we have already 44 maritime administrations have recognized Indian Register of Shipping as their RO or recognized organizations. We have a team called Research and Innovations. I'll be discussing these things in a bit details later on, but one of the things I would like to say that this is the backbone of our all activities, because without research you will not be able to understand what is going on, or even you will not be able to develop rules, because we are developing rules. So in order to develop rules particularly related to vessels and other floating bodies and offshore structures, you have to know what are the things are happening, what are the regulations of other environmental, and not only that you have to know what are the structural requirements and other machinery requirements. So in order to understand that things, your research needs to continue. So this research are in various segments. Some of the segments are structure, some of the segments are in hydrodynamics, some of the segments are in offshore, some of the segments are in machinery, and even we have been working in cyber security for quite some time. We are representing in one of the cyber security cell, internationally recognized, and we have been developing rules, and our people are giving advices to certain firms what needs to be done in the cyber security. So it is this research, what I am trying to say that it is a large qualified workforce for research. Of course, our research main head office in Mumbai. So people, those who are working in the research divisions, they are sitting here in Mumbai. Though we have a large, service station, large number of service stations are there who are providing data. Data is the backbone nowadays in the research. You must have heard that big data and many other things are there which cannot be developed without having a large quantity of data. So these data we do receive from our various service stations. These service stations, as I have mentioned, that these are the operating in all over the world. So we do get some of the data like some problems are there, or some near misses problems are there, or even some sensor based data which we are getting from these vessels. So based on this data we accumulate all these things, and then we analyze this data, and at the end of the day this might be coming to a kind of rules or regulations. we have developed rule. We are also in ship structure and ship hydrodynamics. Then corrosion and fatigue is one of the main criteria in the floating body, which is floating into the water, because when we are talking about this deep water or something, it must be a sea water. So if it is a sea water, it is a sea is a very saline. The saline water has certain corrosion capability, so it corrodes. So how to keep the your structure intact, particularly your offshore structures. So there is a question of painting coming, how that paint quality, how often that you need to change the paint, or what are the different types of paints are coming, and how to address this issue so that your structural integrity will be maintained, because you have to that when the people are working in the offshore is a high risk zone, because whenever this high gain is there, the high risk is also there. If something goes wrong, so then it is a disaster, because it will be environmentally, it will be pollutions, there are bodies are there, they will be slapped you and they will be fine you, and in order to avoid such scenarios you have to keep your structures intact, and you have to maintain all these rules and regulations. So then another subject is called this vibrations and noise. These vibrations and noise, those are frequently frequently happening in many structures, particularly vessels. When this we have been receiving many queries. If you ask me from my experiences, I have been receiving many queries, particularly from these different types of vessels, passenger vessels or your naval vessels, or even other type of vessels where vibration is happening, which is not desirable, because if certain structure or certain portion of the structure vibrates and it is beyond certain limit, passengers or the crew members, those who are sitting in that region, they will not be able to work, or they will not be able to, I'm going to say, sleep also. So in order to arrest that vibrations or noise, what needs to be done, what type of assessments needs to be done, and what structural modification needs to be done, this is actually pioneer things, or we have been giving the advices to different organizations. Then of course we have a formal safety assessment or the risk assessment. Anything you would like to do, particularly in the water, it involves risk. So we are giving that kind of a services, how to mitigate the risk. So that risk actually may be in the port, maybe in the vessels, maybe in the other areas also. This risk may be due to the natural calamities, whether it is an earthquake, whether it is a flood, or whether it is some terrorist attack or something else, or whether some hazardous material somebody is handling. So how actually this risk is being taken care? So that type of things we are also providing services, and development of the new engineering methods and of the softwares. So analysis of the data from the ships in service. We do, as I mentioned, we do get lot of data from different service stations, and this data is being analyzed, and at the end of the day our rules are being changed, the rules are being modified, or we need to understand the proactive actions to develop some kind of a guideline in order to maintain the environment. I just wanted to give, since it is underwater related, some one or two examples in between I am just giving where IRS is involved, and these are the examples which I have been showing. It is actually a live problem. So it is not a fictitious research or something. You can see that thing, this is an underwater explosion, which is called Andex. So this type of things will be happening when a vessels, I'm going to say, has some threat. Particularly, we have been dealing this type of analysis or this type of things in the naval structures or naval vessels. So naval vessel has certain kind of a criteria that what could be the, I'm going to say, risk involved, particularly if certain, I'm going to say, charge is explode in certain distance. So one is that charge or mass, another is that distance from the charge to that vessels. So how to analyze what will be the effect of that charges if it is getting exploded, and how the effect will be there on the hull or machinery of that particular vessels, whether it will be able to sustain or some damage will be there, what kind of damage will be there, whether it will be able to, I'm going to say, your machinery will be able to operate at that time. All these things are being analyzed, and at the end of the day we are providing service to different organizations, particularly Indian Navy, to give suggestions, or in fact we have a rules. We have a rules for this underwater explosions which is already there, which we have developed, and if any vessels or Indian Navy they wanted to construct, they have to notations they have to get, and for that notation they have to I mean to say their vessel has to that type of regulations they have to maintain. So this type of analysis which is being done in the underwater. So what means particularly the effect of these explosions into the ship structures is being carried out in Indian Register of Shippings. We are also providing service to the underwater radiated noise. What is that underwater radiated noise? So if certain vessels are flying, it will be emitting certain sound. This sound might be coming from the propeller, it might be coming from the machinery, it might be coming from the other hull structures. So if that noise is getting detected by some enemy ships, they will be able to know that your I mean say movement, so which will be vulnerable to the naval ships. So how to mitigate that thing, how to I mean say minimize the signature which is happening due to the noise which is producing by the hull and machinery of the your ships. So that is being propagated to threat to that particular vessels is being modeled, and at the end of the day we are also providing service how to minimize that noise. This is from the vessel point of view. And another aspect of this underwater radiated noise is that we are suppose some noise is happening, and it will be affecting the animals or the mammals, those who are residing into the water. So IMO will be coming with certain guideline that in order to maintain that calmness into the deep sea, your sound level or your emitted sound level should be under certain level. So if you wanted to arrest that sound, if you wanted to arrest the radiated noise, you have to know how to arrest that thing, what are the precautions you have to need to take, or your structural design has to be there so that your emitted sound will be less. So this type of servicing also service we are also providing. Then we have already told that thing, based on all this analysis, we have also developed for the last 40 years, we have been developing different rules. So these rules are actually for the seagoing steel vessels, inland water vessels, high-speed craft, mobile offshore drilling units, hovercraft, single point mooring, fixed offshore structures, naval rules for combatant and non-combatant ships, and Coast Guard ships. So all these rules are being developed or already in place, and people have to use, people will be using that rule, and they are using these rules. And whenever we are classing certain vessels or other structures related to this offshore or in marine, we are also applying that rules. And these rules also, you know that thing, certain modifications are required based on the latest development. So that part also we do take care. I hope you are with me, Dr. Sajans. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I'm able to follow you. I'm able to.
Yeah. So I'll be then the defense service. We are also in the defense service. Our class has formed a different divisions. This is the single point contact for all defense projects. So is the focus is the project management and the new building defense projects and ensuring high quality service. So this defense project means from the inception to the end, means when a vessel is being in your design from that stage, how it will be built, and our inspections, our services, the surveyors will be there in the shipyards, and then we joined hand together in the Indian Navy to get the project successful. In that way, we have been, I'm going to say, helping, or we have been associating with the Indian Navy for not only one or two, hundreds and hundreds of vessels, like your offshore patrol vessels and Coast Guard vessels and many other types of vessels. Then marine technical service, we're also involved in the condition assessment program, which is called CAP, and then noise and vibration measurement analysis, then specification service, and owner representative for this for different offshore structures. And here in the condition assessment program, we do verify what is that health of the structures or what is the health of these machineries, and at the end of the day, based on this service, we do provide the certificate whether it will be fit for this operations or not. We have been giving the service to the port sector, the risk assessment, disaster management, condition assessment program, review of the oil spill contingency program. Because if certain suppose you have to tomorrow you have you have a vessel which is flying into the water, and it has some leak and the oil is flowing, then what will be the effect? It will be have a disaster to this environment. So you cannot do that thing. You will be your regulatory body will be coming, and they will be finding you just like anything. So then you, in order to avoid such things, that thing, what is that contingency plans you are putting into that thing? So you suppose tomorrow you are developing some ROV, so that ROV also has some fuel tank. So or something else is there, battery operated. So if something goes wrong, so what will be the effect in the environment? So that all these things, contingency plans needs to be taken into account before we going to that things into the service. Then we have an offshore service also there. There also we have been giving that new construction for the offshore vessels, conversion to the specialized type of offshore vessels, then critical repairs for the refurbishment of the MODU to MOPU, single point mooring, offshore platform, jackup and topside, submarine pipeline. I give you the small example here. You see that thing. This is the actual project which we have executed in Nigeria. The company called Dangote, which is one of the biggest refineries in the world, and they have to install 5 SPM, that single point mooring, and also they will be laying pipe which is actually underwater of nearly 40 meters to 25 meters depth, and this pipe depths of 48 inches. So how these things will be done in the underwater, and how this pipe will be laid, and how the welding will be done, how there will be no problem after laying that thing, that thing, this will be all refinery. So oil will be flowing through this pipe. If there is some mistakes or there is some kind of a flaw is there, oil will be spilling from that things, and thus all these things will be in the seabed, which is 40 meters below or 50 meters below. So we have to ensure 100% accuracy into that work in order to get the things done, so that there will be no problem. And once this is installed, it will be there for another 20 to 30 years. So your work has to be like that, so that the design will be taken care, that your longevity for this all this entire structures will be sustaining for this 20 to 30 years, and also there will be no problem. Of course, there will be from point to point, there will be some kind of a inspections will be there, that will be always there, and if there is some problem, you have to go underwater and you have to repair that things and come out and without any problem. Then we have a called IR Class Academy, that is a partner to Maritime Professional Development, which is established in 2014 for disseminating knowledge to the maritime sector. So here we do provide some kind of a training program. This training program in different type of field, which is in the related to the ship operation, related to the welding, related to the risk assessment, or related to the ballast water management or maritime cyber risk management. So all this type of course is being offered, and our people, those who are quite experienced, they guide you in order to understand that subjects or how to provide the service in industries. We have another cell called digitalizations and new initiatives. I am not discussing much here. Nowadays, everybody knows what is digitalizations and what are the areas involved. Nowadays, everything in the fingertips. People are not sending that their plans like previously they used to send it by courier or by your hard copy. All these things are nowadays coming by e-plan, which is they provide. We have a server. They upload that thing, we check that thing, and at the end of the day, we provide the comments, everything, from your digitalized. So we also, some kind of a service we do provide, where our clients and our customers, they do get the informations of their vessels or in their fingertips, in their mobiles, what is the status of the survey and all these things. In the ship certification, the ship recycling yards also amongst the first organizations for verifying ship recycling yards according to European Union standards as an independent verifier. Now there are certain industrial service also we are involved. As you know that in oil and gas sectors, we have there energy, then port and material handling and power and general engineering. And all these things actually lead to the design review or third-party inspections or some kind of a capability development, some kind of project management, risk and safety, condition assessment, and all other type of things. We have a management system certifications also, which is accredited by RBA, and we have 4,000 clients are there who are in different parts of the world. We do provide that certificate, and we are also received the accreditation from all these certifications agencies. Center for Excellence in Maritime Shipbuilding, which is also one of the part company who are dealing into the training to that skill development program for the maritime and the shipbuilding sectors, promoted by Indian Register of Shipping in partnership with the Siemens and support from the Sagarmala Ministry of Shipping. Aims to provide globally relevant skill, technical manpower in the latest manufacturing technologies for shipbuildings, repair, and ancillary sectors. Now, what are the opportunities and underwater explosions, which we will be discussing? So far, I have been discussing what Indian Register of Shipping does, and at the end of the day, how we are actually involved in that maritime sectors and also related to the water. As long as we are talking about this underwater explorations or underwater opportunities and underwater technologies, first of all, we have to know the player, those who are working into the water. So at the end of the day of my first part, I would like to say we are the classifications body, or we are the classification society who do provide the certificate to the people or the owner or the operation people, those who are working into that ships or any other floating body, those who are related to the water. At the end of the day, we do provide the certificate maintaining or understanding the regulations from different government of organizations, particularly Indian government, which is called DG Shippings, or any international regulatory body like MARPOL and SOLAS. So in this underwater opportunities and challenges, I have just I would like to discuss certain topics. I believe some of the topics has already been discussed by Professor N.R. Mondal, or initially Professor Murli Mohan has also mentioned. Like so, in the course of my discussions, I will be touching upon whatever they have mentioned and what is our understanding. So this is one of the things, which is a tidal energy converter. India had come up with any innovative. India had not come up with any innovative tidal energy generator to pilot scale and commercialization level as of. Whereas all the developed countries, they have done the tier 4 and 5 stages, which are very costlier for India on cost per kilowatt hour basis, which is called that orbital or open hydro. And tidal energy is reliable and constant energy sources like solar. So the Gulf of Cambay and the Gulf of Kutch in Gujarat are the places with the highest tidal range in India, up to 11 meters. So why not we can utilize the tidal difference, the tidal height difference, and we can generate certain energy which will be helping our country in different sectors. As you know that thing, India, in many parts of this India, still there is no resources or source of power. So this is the renewable energy. This is the renewable energy, like your sun. So then we can utilize these things, and at the end of the day, utilizing these things, tidal difference, like this above table, we can show that thing. It will be that that this is the tidal ranges. This is the tidal ranges of different parts of India. So the above table shows that 2 to 3 meter tide is present all over Indian coast. Fortunately, we have a large coastal area. We have a large coastal area, but comparing that things, we have a very little innovative research going on, which can tap all these resources available around the Indian coast, and at the end of the day, convert it to certain large scale product, which will be helping to us and to India as a nation. So additionally, Hundreds of safe river sea connections points are there. Looking at the India's energy needs and coastal population requirements, India must indigenously develop existing worldwide technologies or develop own innovative solutions, keeping in mind cost of the systems as center point for mass scale adoptions. You know, you might be doing some research, but at the end of the research, if your product is not cost effective, it will be difficult to make it a large scale production. So at the end of the day, whatever we need to be developed, it has to be some kind of a scalable opportunity has to be there. It has to be done in such a way so that its scalability should be there. So at the end of the day, some large scale productions can be done, or at least, I mean, so when we are talking about this tidal energy, so there will be many machinery parts will be there. So at this point, we might not be able to develop such kind of a machinery parts. We are all dependent from these European countries and all these things, you know. Today, when we are talking about this vessel, ship, so all these ship engines, they come from where? They come from Europe, they come from other parts of the world. Now, I mean, so how many Indian companies are there who can develop such kind of engine? So which is very costly and which is the major part of the cost of this vessel. So here, similarly, when you are talking about this your tidal energy, so it will be not only that entire process, it will be, there are many ancillary things will be there which will be associated with that industry and which slowly may come up. 20 years back, in or 25 years or 30 years back, India was pioneer in shipbuilding. Now you can see what happens. After 30 years, this entire actually industry got diminished. Now in the parts of China, it is parts of, I mean to say, Korea, they have taken over all the Samsung, and then Daewoo and the Chinese all body, they have been building the ships after ships. And we are also only just some kind of a small ships we are now, I mean to say, we are now building. And that also, it takes a lot of time. So nobody wanted to take so much time to build their ships, because you know, ships, it is actually a business. If you the one day delay, if you are making, there are millions of dollars actually they are getting penalized. So no owner wanted to wait for that thing. Similarly, but you can see that thing when that China and this Korea, they have come up with that shipbuilding, how many ancillary things have been now established, that engine manufacturing, repairing, and all these things. So if we are starting in that way, there may be some other ancillary things associated with that type of industry will be slowly coming out. This is another one, is that desalinizations using renewable energy. Water scarcity will be one of the serious global problem in near future, and desalinizations is one of the key contender. How to get that, I mean to say, your potable water, because you might have a long coastal line, but this water is not usable for this drinking purpose. Particularly, this is a very saline. So traditionally, such plants have been costly and carbon intensive, because one common desalination method, reverse osmosis, is expensive because it requires a great deal of electricity to push water through a filter. It's also costly to treat the water to kill microbes and to replace the filters. So tidal, wind, solar, and wave energy can be combined for carbon-free and cheaper production for fresh water from brackish water at river sea connection points rather than sea water. Sea water will be saline. At the same time, river water will be fresh water. But if we can, I mean to say, such type of industry, we can make it at the, I mean to say, brackish water, which is the connection point between river and the sea, your salinity will be little bit of less, and we can utilize that water, and then I mean to say, some desalination can be, I mean to say, that industry can be developed. Professor Mondal, morning you was talking about this underwater tourism. I agree with him, because we have seen that thing. This type of actually, I mean to say, industry is now very much familiar in other parts of the world. It is the indigenous manufacturing. the scuba diving equipments, mini submarines, single person submarines. You can see that thing, various types of actually, I mean to say, recreations, or even that the tourism industry can be, I mean to say, built based on this theme. So it is in Indian maritime visions is then 2030 as one of the key theme is to promote ocean, coastal and the river cruise sector, where facilities like snorkeling, scuba diving, underwater live aquariums and adventures are important to attract tourists. Nowadays, underwater submarine safaris to shipwrecks are also growing in popularity. Morning, Professor Murli Mohan, he was talking about this Dwarka, which is under sea. So that type of actually activity can be done where you can take the tourist under the sea, but for that things you need to have that vehicle. You need to have that type of, I mean, say, apparatus. You need to have that type of arrangement. You need to have that type of industry to develop that things, because it cannot be done just one you or me. It needs the, if we wanted to develop such kind of a availability or prospect or such kind of a industry, it has to be developed with many industry and with that government organizations also. Because I mean to say, here it news the regulations you have to maintain, you have to safety is one of the key priority, because if something goes wrong tomorrow and everything will be under, I mean to say, carpet. So this risk factor will be very high for that things. So in order to mitigate that risk, you have to start from the designing stage point of view, and at the end of the day, you have to come out with certain solutions, with certain products, with certain development, with certain understanding how you wanted to make that, I mean to say, that theme to popular, because you know these are the things will be there and it will be there for next 100 years, because people will be going, people wanted to see, people wanted to adventure, people wanted to explore the areas. So if you are providing certain tools, if you are providing certain vehicles, so to take them, so it will be easy for us to understand what is that business. And it is not only business, it will be technological development has to be there. So this type of scuba diving and this type of sea, all these apparatus and all these instruments nowadays India is not I'm going to say making. India is unable to make that thing. So they are actually importing all this apparatus. So why not we can develop such kind of a technology so that the building can be done here, maybe at the very beginning some kind of a, I mean, so you have to start slowly. You cannot, Roma was not built in a day. You cannot build everything in one day. But at the end of the day, if you are developing, if you have the right inclinations, you have the right vision is there, then if not today, tomorrow we will be able to achieve such kind of a understanding or such kind of a dream. So this is underwater tourism, why it is important for us. Because you know, India has a many spots, tourist spots are there, right from the beginning of your Andaman to your Lakshadweep or different parts of this coast area, Goa and all these things. This type of, I mean to say, underwater tourism will be very much successful. So that's why government has a vision in 2030 to promote ocean, coastal and river cruise sector. You know, there are many, I mean to say, ports are being developed. So when the port is being developed, connectivity will be increased. I mean, all the vessels which are flying, I mean to say, through the side of India, so they can actually berth into the port, and some people will be coming, and your business will be increasing. And we can also this underwater tourism that we can actually, I mean to say, think one of the, I mean to say, great opportunities in India. You can see that thing in the field of the diving. Presently, India imports all the components and equipments related to scuba diving. Underwater tourism is a multi-billion-dollar industry, with diving tourism estimated to be worth between US 20 billion and US 30 billion, while coral reef tourism generates US 35.4 billion in global tourism value every year. So we need to embark on a joint research project along with tourism industry for indigenous development of the scuba diving related to the equipments, as well as more ambitiously mini submarine. These will be also useful for underwater survey and research activities in the coastal and river and the deep offshore projects. Not only this will make India self-reliant. Today we have been talking about this Atmanirbhar Bharat. So it is a self-reliant for such high-cost import equipments, because now we are all dependent on the importing such kind of equipments. Even if you wanted to do underwater welding, the equipments are actually you are importing from outside. So we have to, when we are talking about this theme underwater technology, these are the things are coming out. These are the things we need to address. How we can self-sufficient, how we can develop such technology, how we can develop such kind of a product in India slowly, so that we do not need to depend on outside market. At the end of the day, it will be developing some kind of a business, and India, some tourism development also will be there, and many tourists from the outside world will be visiting India. There is another the subject which I'd like to talk, that is underwater hull cleaner. You know, when the ship is flying, it will be most of the parts actually it is underwater. And the moment it will be underwater, day after day, month after month, and year after year, so there will be some fouling will be developed. And this, when the fouling will be developed, it will be increasing the resistance or resistance to the drag. So the moment it will be resistance will be increased, what will happen? It will be actually it will be burning more fuel to generate the energy. So the moment it will be burning more fuel, it will be actually emission will be there. You know, in 2030 and 2040 or 50, IMO has certain regulations that GHG emission, greenhouse gas emissions, which is SOx, NOx, and carbon dioxide. So you have to, your emission has to be minimum. Your emission has to be controlled. If your emission is not coming down, that vessel cannot fly. So you have, the ship owner has to discard that vessels. So that type of regulations is coming. So from that point of view, this drags or whatever this fouling, what is happening, you need to arrest that fouling. So now what is happening? As per the recent carbon industry indicator related regulations, ships need to reduce the GHG footprint, and hull cleaning is unavoidable options. Also, underwater hull cleaning is important for ships in order to avoid spread of invasive species from one port to other as per the ballast water conventions. When you are traveling from one part of the world to another part of the world, if these foulings are there, you will be carrying some invasive species which some port may not be allowing. So if they are not allowing you, some kind of your penalty will be there, or you may be asked to leave that port. So in order to avoid such kind of a scenario, you have to clean your hull. So how to clean that hull? So nowadays you see, if you go to the next page, though India has the fleet of 1,340 vessels, including 400 international big vessels, there is not a single manufacturer of such autonomous and other hull cleaning equipments. Average 10 years lease needs down payment of rupees 2.5 crore with monthly expenses of rupees 10 lakhs. Each hull cleaning is charged at the rate of rupees 12 lakhs. So you can understand what is that, your money is involved in that business. Nowadays, all these owners or somebody, either they have to import or they have to ask the foreign party to get that equipment brought here and get the hull cleaned, or they wanted to send their vessel to some other outside port, and which is also costly. You can understand. And not only that thing, if you wanted to dry dock to remove that your fouling, that will be more costly, and it is not possible to dry dock the vessel because ship is always a business. I told one day if it is not operating, millions of dollars is lost. So you cannot just ask the owner, you just dry dock it to remove that hull fouling. It is not possible. So you have to develop such kind of instrument or you have to develop some kind of a robotic arm, or you have to develop some kind of a robots which can actually, I mean to say, pass through the hull of the structures, and it can remove the fouling, and it can suck the all these materials and put it into some other container. So as a self-sustainable goal, an operator of technology, India need to take initiative in indigenous innovative development of such technology in a cheaper way. Nowadays, what is happening? Sometimes we are sending the diver down below the water, and you know, in India also there is a scarcity of the good divers also. You may not be getting a good qualified diver who can do all these types of jobs. So some kind of a, so neither you have a good diver nor you have a good apparatus. So these all we are depending on the foreign, I mean to say, industry, those who are actually taking that advantage of this requirement. So in that particularly perspectives, we have also in IRS also involved in developing some kind of a guidelines in water hull cleaning. So we participated in a project which is actually organized by many industries like BIMCO, ICS, and all ports and IX. So IRS was the representative of the IX into that committee, and at the end of the day, we developed a guideline, standard, and approval procedure for in-water hull cleaning. So this companies has to be follow that in-water hull cleaning standard to clean their hull. The approval of the in-water cleaning system with capture will be based on an independent testing and assessment of the performance criteria. These standards and accompanying approval procedure is now available on the BIMCO and ICS websites. There are other type of things are there which is always requirement like ROV. The development of the required in the area, requirement from the NSTL to develop ROV for their research purpose. Potential clients of the ROV are the tourism industry, Navy, Coast Guard, and repair and the maintenance team could be the potential clients. The project of the ROV, some of the ROVs actually this the mini submarine type of things which is classed with IRS. I remember 10 years back they came with certain proposal that they are operating because they have to dive every time they go underwater. This is one cycle actually they are completing. So there are certain number of cycles, let us say thousands dive it can give it, but there is also depth is also associated with that thing. How many dives it will be going and how much depths will be going. So based on that thing, it has certain life cycles. So then they came up with certain that whether we can increase the number of dives, and we did the analysis, and based on the regulations we have actually suggested them, yes, they can continue diving provided such and such are maintained. So so these are the kind of a projects we are already associated with. So these are the ROV which will be helping in many industries in underwater. It is not only your welding, not only your hull cleaning, not only in your repair, not only in your mine searching, or many others. These ROVs are nowadays integral part of the underwater industries. Other areas are the development of the sensors and the autonomous systems for underwater imaging, data collections, communications, and the video captures. Previously, some of the speakers they are mentioning, particularly in IoT, that how these mines are being looked into, and all this image sensing data. So for that type of these things, your sensors will be very much important. And that the development of the underwater big fish farms in one of the criteria what Professor Mondal was discussing. And then underwater plastic capture and the pollution control technologies, wave energy generators, and underwater seaweed farming. So these are the certain areas actually which we are discussing, that where we can discuss or where we can invest our understanding, invest our knowledge, invest our potential joint venture, so that we can develop some kind of a product or some kind of a services which will be, I mean to say, helpful to the nations or helpful to the industry or helpful to the other people. So here another one is that underwater acoustics. I have already mentioned that we are also involved in that live project here. So underwater acoustics play important role for marine life as well as the stealth aspect of the defense vessels. Thus minimizing the underwater radiated noise from the ship is of the concerns to all commercial and the defense vessels. IRS is engaged in activities for predictions of underwater radiated noise from ships and minimizing the URN as practicable is targeted. In underwater acoustics also, so testings of the many underwater systems including sonar systems and underwater vehicles require test platforms that can be deployed at various depths underwater. I really do not want to discuss in detail. We can one-to-one later on, we can discuss how it will be affecting. In fact, right now, in fact, the discussion is going on with NSTL. We wanted to have a joint collaborations with the NSTL. We are doing some kind of analysis and they are doing some kind of experiment, and we wanted to validate our experimental results with that our analysis result with that experimental data, so that some type of reliability will be developed and we can utilize our technology in far more other areas in underwater acoustics. In underwater explosions, we have also mentioned about defense vessel. Underwater explosion is one of the major threats, and structural design is expected to take care of such severe loads so that the complete failure is avoided. IRS is engaged in activities to predict the undexed loads and response of the ships due to such loads. Then underwater communication is another areas where this group may work. Underwater communication is a technique for sending and receiving message below water. Types of underwater communication may be hardware type or wireless type, and underwater wireless communication play an important role in marine activities such as environmental monitoring, underwater explorations, and the scientific data collections. These are the very few pictures which is happening in the underwater wireless communications. So at a glance, or if you want me to summarize that things, so we also actually dealing with the cyber risk management. We have a team, those who are dealing that things, and we are giving the regulatory requirements, guidelines for the cyber risk management and the gap analysis, and at the end of the day, certifications, compliance, and training on cyber risk management also, because we have a dedicated team for this cyber risk, those who are working for the last, let us say, 7 to 8 years. So at a glance, if we want to have some IRS supports in all the proposed or other projects, IRS research divisions can help IIT Guwahati in assessing the following: safety of humans and environmental pollutions, hydrodynamic strength and stability calculation, risk and hazard analysis of the various scenarios, development of the customized rules and guidelines, comparison with the international standards, continuous survey and certifications of the sustainability for projects during operations on annual basis. And IRS personnel will work hand in hand with stakeholders from day one under joint industry projects and until life cycle of the developed products or service. IRS can also extend the support for project management and stakeholders engagement activities. This is in a very nutshell what I wish to convey. There are many other areas actually which we are which might be having, which I might have just touched upon. Whenever the opportunity will be there, we can discuss in one-to-one or with that TIH Technology Innovation Hub, that in which area, like one of the areas we have been discussing is this underwater welding and how to develop such kind of a technology with the help of Indian divers. I know Dr. Sajan is already involved into that thing. So it is a we have to develop our own capability. Nobody will be helping us. No other country will be helping. So we have to develop. Our vision has to keep like that. We have to be self-sufficient. And when like TIS, they have got an opportunity from the government of India your zeal will be like that thing. I need to achieve the dream. Whatever, you know, one thing is there. Today we are more matured. Nothing can be achieved individually. You have to collaborate, because every people has some speciality. Some organization has specialty in some area, some other people has some other specialty, particularly professors is working in certain directions. So we have to make a team, so that at the end of the day we can get out of maximum from each one, so which can be utilized, and at the end of the day we can develop. And I'm sure that your dream, whatever your dream is there, you will be able to achieve. Thank you very much for giving an opportunity. If you have any queries, I will be ready to answer these things.
Thank you very much, sir. It was very elaborated presentation. You have tell us a lot about the IRS, and definitely I believe that IRS can be one of the nodal organization between the TIH and the product which we are developing for the industry. So if there are any queries from the audience, please raise the hand. Okay, I think I have a few, sir. Then we can proceed further. Sir, which organization usually take care of the underwater life supporting equipments? Is IRS is responsible for that as well? For example, the underwater helmet. Like if the TIH is developing the underwater suit, I of course know about the welding, but other than these areas, can you highlight a little bit?
You are talking about underwater suit?
Underwater divers, the suit for the divers, and the helmet which we have recently seen in many of the divers were talking about. Yeah.
See, for all things related to the safety related, I mean to say apparatus, we have some special teams, those who are looking into that thing. Particularly, I know that thing in the vessel, because there are a lot of other things are there. Your I mean to say, when some accident happens, so at that time your these life jackets and all these things, so all these things we are taking care. At the end of the day, we are giving the certificates. So I do believe that I have to just discuss with my friend that underwater suit, whether they are also product I mean to say type approval they are giving. I believe they will be giving, as long as they are giving that your all these jackets and all these things, life jackets.
Yes, yeah, this question maybe will come from Kanakraj sir soon, because he's developing this type of biomedical device, and the first on priority is the suit, indigenously developed suit. So okay, sir, and also I want to know certification for ROVs and the electronics, and at what level they can contact you. For example, they want to develop underwater motors indigenously in the TIH. So for that again, IRS is having a body for that.
See, particularly related to the all machinery items, we have a cell called type approval and machinery group. So they approve that type of certificate for this ship and vessels. So for this ROV also, I do believe they will be able to give that certificate, because see, ROVs and all these things are slowly coming. It is not that much deployable at this moment, not a I mean, scalable quantity type of things is happening. That way, ships are there, we have thousands of vessels are there, and every day or other day some certificates are going on. So this type of ROVs and all these things, it is a new type of things which is coming. Of course, I know that thing, some of the vessels are classed with IRS, like this tourism industry, the submarine, semi-submarine type of things is already classed with IRS. So when the entire vessel is classed with IRS, the machinery items also has to be classed with IRS.
So any organization looking for the underwater tourism, particularly, which we have missed in the workshop?
Well, I know one or two people like in Mauritius or something, those Blue Safari or somebody, they actually our client who are having that type of vessels, like submarine type of things, where people can dive through their vessels and go underwater. So that type of submarines are classed with IRS. So I have to find out what other clients are there. Blue Safaris from Mauritius is one of the clients I know.
Okay, yeah. Thanks a lot, sir. I think there are a few questions now. Niranjan Sahu, sir, please.
Hello, can you hear?
Yes.
Sir, I just wanted to have one query is that you discussed about. I mean, one of the important area is underwater explosion. Yeah. So in
Yes.
that things, just I want to know within the deep sea, or can you just please say, or what are the different source that this explosion can occur? Means underwater. First thing. Second thing, and you also talk about this explosion takes in a very short duration, in a millisecond durations. In one of the slide, you mentioned more than 10 megapascal pressure in a very short duration time scale. So the why I am saying this, because we have been working the area of shock waves in the that is which is mostly used in aerospace industries, where the future generation aerospace vehicles are driven through this. Now same idea I just wanted to explore, if in a laboratory scale, can you initiate a facility where you can impinge a shock wave which moves in the water? And one important thing is that when you talk about shock wave moving in the water, its water density is more than 1,000 times higher than air. So probably creating a shock wave and moving it and initiating an explosion through a shock wave will be a challenging task in the laboratory scale, that I understand. Just that in that way, do you think that some kind of projects in this direction at the lab scale development will fit into your application? First question. And second question, with respect to sea, what are the different ways that explosion can occur underwater?
Thank you very much for your questions. See, now these are the explosions that happen generally, I'm to say, is a minesweeper type of things. When the vessels are flying, particularly the naval vessels, the enemy, I'm to say, country or somebody wanted to implant some kind of a mine inside that, I'm to say, seabed. So if your vessels cannot detect that type of mine, it will be when your vessels will be flying, particularly I am talking about these naval vessels, because these are the applicable mainly for these naval vessels who has a stealth or combat type of activities are there. So these vessels, when it will be flying, if the mines are there, it will be spontaneously, it will be blasted and your vessels will be damaged. So that type of activity, I mean to say, it will be definitely, it will be happening in a milliseconds. And I mean to say that shock wave which will be generating will be tremendous. And it will be affecting your hull, particularly some kind of a hull, I mean to say hole or some kind of a damage. And if it is a damage is quite high, then your vessels will be in a risk. So in giving your answers, so this type of things will be happening generally when your opponent countries will be implanting some kind of a mines in the seabed. And yes, when the mine will be exploding, it will be exploding in a milliseconds, and your force will be quite high. And then your next question, whatever you have asked for this, whether it is possible to simulate that type of activities into that your laboratory. See, when we are talking about this explosion and all these things, it will be very difficult to get that regulatory body's approval. You know, only the government organizations, particularly NSTLs and all these things, they might have certain kind of a understanding from the government. I know, because we are also involved in doing certain kind of experiment previously with NSTL, and NSTL they did, I mean to say, some experiment in the lake or somewhere, but they may not be allowing you to do such kind of experiment because it will be a quite risk it will be involved. So that type of, I mean to say, explosions, whether and which scale you will be able to do. See, you can do certain the minute scale, but that in order to develop whether that scale will be applicable to the real, I mean to say, your vessel or real activity, that will be very different. Your entire things, your medium is different, your charge is different, your distance is different. So everything will be difficult to, I mean to say, take into account and do that studies into that laboratory, and getting that approval will be very difficult. Am I able to give that answer? So
No, that's okay. But just to, if you remove the word explosion, can you think of some kind of measurement diagnostics in underwater or acoustic measurements? Maybe
yeah, common type of things
like
definitely.
sloshing behavior, all sorts of things.
Sloshing behavior, I mean to say, many people are doing nowadays. Sloshing, actually, we are involved in many projects where we are, I mean to say, sloshing things are getting calculated, and in fact, IRS is also involved in one of the international projects where sloshing is being carried out experimentally also, and most probably in numerically. So that type of things is different, definitely can be done. But the way you are telling that things, that in air and in water, these are the two different things. Though it is aerodynamics and hydrodynamics, your technology might be different, your idea might be different. Though I'm going to say it will be in laboratory, definitely in minute scale. You can definitely do that thing, but you might have to, rather than your laboratory, I would say, if you have a small pond or lake where you can do such type of a testing, it will be much more feasible, I would say, in that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Professor Atul.
Talked about this tidal energy converter. So basically, I am working with a student, and we are working on actually harvesting energy from vibrating submerged structures. So I wanted to know from you, like, to get your opinion, how can we move to the commercialization, like to the large scale level from the lab?
See, first and foremost answer what I will be giving. I'm not sure you are in an industry or you are in an institute.
I'm from IIT Guwahati itself.
IIT Guwahati. So, sir, this is the first questions I will be giving you the answer, that if you wanted to develop such kind of a, I mean to say, product-oriented activity, you have to have some kind of a joint venture with the industry. Because without doing that thing, it will be very difficult. And you have to convince to certain industry who will be able to, I mean to say, take that thing forward, and whatever idea or whatever understanding you are giving, whether it will be feasible or not, you have to convince. And if they are able to convince, then somebody has to put some money. So which is more, I'm going to say, in India, I personally feel that is the most difficult job at least. I mean, you might be getting some projects from DST, you might be getting some projects from CSR, but funding from that industry in order to get that thing tested, I mean to say, really, I mean to say, we are, I mean to say, struggling. We are struggling. So you have to convince to certain industry, those who are into that business, and get some kind of a understanding, some kind of a joint venture, and then you can sell your idea, and so that some kind of a testing can be done, and which it is, if it is fruitful, then you can large scale, I'm going to say, productivity, we can definitely think about that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Professor Atul. So thank you very much, sir, for your wonderful presentation, and we will be in touch, of course, for further expanding our discussion on the training school. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So thank you, Professor Samant. So already we are in touch with you, and definitely we are going to have some collaboration work with your institute, and soon we'll contact you regarding the MOU also. So thank you very much for your nice presentation. Our faculty members will be definitely benefited out of this thing, and they will contact you regarding, they might have many more questions. They will contact you soon, I hope. Okay,
we'll be much more happy to answer these things. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Already have answered most of the questions. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.